She steps into the frame, cheekbones like architecture, gaze like a spotlight. But this isn't a runway. It's a music video set that would change pop culture forever. In the late 20th century, the worlds of high fashion and popular music collided, spectacularly. Suddenly, models weren't just gracing Vogue or walking for Chanel. They were starring in chart-topping videos, inspiring hit songs, and redefining what it meant to be a muse. This wasn't a marketing gimmick, it was a cultural transformation. Supermodels became more than faces. They became icons, shaping not just style, but sound. In this video, we'll explore the most legendary crossovers between supermodels and music, the visuals that stopped time, the relationships that rewrote tabloid headlines, and the unexpected ways this fusion continues to shape global culture. Because sometimes, a look is more than a look, it's a soundtrack. Before the supermodels of the 90s became music video royalty, one band saw the future before everyone else: Duran Duran. In the early 1980s, the British new wave group didn't just make music, they crafted a vision, one that looked more like a fashion editorial than a rock video. Their 1981 breakthrough, Girls on Film, was the first real statement. Directed by Godley and Krem, the video featured professional models in highly stylized, often provocative scenes, so provocative, in fact, that MTV only aired an edited version. But the message was clear. Fashion wasn't just an accessory to music, it could be the headline act. Duran Duran followed up with Rio, featuring Italian aristocrat and model Rima Ruspoli sailing through vivid Caribbean waters, and Hungry Like the Wolf, which placed exotic model Sheila Ming in a cinematic jungle adventure. These weren't just backdrops. They were fantasies in motion. "We wanted our videos to look like the fashion magazines we admired," said lead singer Simon Le Bon. Vogue, The Face, L'Uomo Vogue, those were our reference points, not just Rolling Stone. Their approach was revolutionary. At a time when many bands still saw music videos as promotional throwaways, Duran Duran elevated the medium into visual storytelling. And by casting models, they brought instant glamour and global appeal to their brand. This fashion-forward strategy paid off, especially in the US. MTV put their sleek, exotic videos on heavy rotation. And suddenly, American teenagers were absorbing European fashion aesthetics in between guitar solos. Duran Duran videos were like fashion education for suburban kids, said fashion historian Valerie Steele. They introduced a whole generation to a more sophisticated, international sense of style. Before George Michael reimagined the music video, before Helena Christensen rolled in the surf, Duran Duran proved that the right model could make a song unforgettable and make fashion a permanent part of the soundtrack.
I won't let you down. I will not give you up.
In 1990, George Michael made a bold decision that would upend the conventions of music videos. He refused to appear in his own. Instead, he cast 5 of the most recognizable faces in the world: Linda Evangelista, Naomi Campbell, Cindy Crawford, Christy Turlington, and Tatiana Petites. At the height of their fame, these women weren't just models, they were cultural icons. And suddenly, they were front and center in a video that would define a decade. "I was terrified," Linda Evangelista later recalled. "We weren't actors, we were models. And now we had to lip sync and embody George's emotions without hiding behind a runway or a camera flash." The result was nothing short of revolutionary. Directed by David Fincher, years before Fight Club or The Social Network, the Freedom 90 video was a cinematic masterpiece. Iconic props from Michael's earlier career, his leather jacket, his jukebox, even his guitar, were destroyed on screen, a visual metaphor for his rejection of image and artifice. And then came the twist. While Michael stepped back, the models stepped forward, lip-syncing lyrics about refusing to be controlled, manipulated, or commodified. George was rejecting his own image while we were at the height of being known for ours, Cindy Crawford explained. There was something revolutionary about that juxtaposition. The video's impact was immediate. MTV placed it in heavy rotation. Fashion magazines treated it like a runway show. Music fans, style lovers, and critics alike recognized it as a cultural moment. The line between fashion and music didn't just blur, it shattered. It was subversive, Naomi Campbell later said. We were giving voice to a man rejecting objectification, even as we were celebrated for our physical image. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. Beyond the glamour, the video was conceptually daring. As the models mouthed lyrics about liberation and self-definition, they weren't just performing. They were reclaiming their own narratives. Their beauty became a tool of storytelling, not just spectacle. Freedom 90 wasn't just a music video. It was a declaration, a turning point that proved models could be more than muses. They could be the message itself. Long before music videos became cinematic epics, some models were already inspiring the songs themselves. One of the most iconic examples? Christie Brinkley, whose real-life romance with Billy Joel gave birth to the 1983 hit Uptown Girl. At the time, Brinkley was at the peak of her modeling fame, gracing magazine covers and embodying all-American glamour. Joel, by contrast, was the scrappy musician from Long Island with a knack for turning blue-collar stories into gold records. Uptown Girl wasn't just a catchy doo-wop revival. It was a love letter, written to and inspired by Brinkley. Joel had initially been dating Elle Macpherson, and the lyrics reportedly evolved as he transitioned into a relationship with Brinkley. The result? A song that captured the awe of a regular guy falling for a woman from a seemingly untouchable world. The accompanying video turned that fantasy into a playful visual narrative. Brinkley starred as the elegant uptown girl who catches the eye of Joel's grease-stained mechanic. Shot with tongue-in-cheek charm, it mirrored the public's disbelief about their real-life pairing. People couldn't believe we were actually together, Brinkley later said. The video played on that disbelief. It was a wink to the tabloids and to ourselves. The song reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became one of Joel's most beloved hits. More than that, it positioned Brinkley as more than just a model. She was a pop culture fixture, immortalized in both lyrics and visuals. Their marriage, though eventually ending in divorce, cemented a media fascination with the model-musician dynamic. The idea that a fashion icon could inspire a hit song gave models a mythic quality. Beautiful, yes, but also muses, catalysts for artistic expression. And Brinkley wasn't alone. Jerry Hall's relationship with Mick Jagger reportedly inspired Rolling Stones tracks like Miss You. Paulina Porizkova met Rick Ocasek on the set of the Cars Drive, a meeting that led to decades of marriage. Models weren't just background figures, said music historian John Kovach. They embodied ideas that musicians were chasing: elegance, distance, mystique. They became the songs.
The world was on fire and no one could save me but you.
If George Michael's Freedom 90 made supermodels icons of the music video era, Chris Isaak's Wicked Game elevated them into something more, co-creators of pure visual poetry. The 1991 video, featuring Danish supermodel Helena Christensen, didn't just sell a song. It seared itself into cultural memory. Directed by legendary fashion photographer Herb Ritz and shot on the black sand beaches of Hawaii, the video was drenched in sensuality. Filmed in stark black and white, it featured Isaak and Christensen entangled in a hypnotic, almost primal embrace, waves crashing, bodies glistening, tension electric. But what made it unforgettable wasn't the skin, it was the sincerity. The chemistry between the two wasn't just believable, it was palpable. That video wasn't acting, Christensen later confessed. There was something real happening between us. It was brief, but it was there, and the camera caught it. Their intimacy wasn't scripted. It unfolded naturally, and Ritz let it breathe. The result felt more like a short film than a promotional clip. Helena didn't just pose. She performed, said fashion photographer Mario Testino. She conveyed more emotion in those 4 minutes than some actors manage in a feature-length film. For Chris Isaak, the video transformed him from cult favorite to mainstream heartthrob. For Christensen, it was a career-defining moment. She became not just a top model, but a symbol of longing, mystery, and emotional depth. The video also marked a turning point in the visual language of music videos. Suddenly, it wasn't enough to cast a model. You had to create something cinematic, poetic, and emotionally resonant. Wicked Game inspired a wave of similarly styled videos, moody, slow-burning, drenched in high-fashion sensibility. And Christensen became the blueprint for a new kind of music video muse, one who could communicate vulnerability and fire without saying a word. In that surf, under that lens, a supermodel didn't just support a song, she embodied it.
When I look into your eyes.
Not every supermodel music crossover was elegant or ethereal. Some were raw, operatic, and soaked in the decadence of the late 80s and early 90s rock scene. Case in point, Stephanie Seymour and Guns N' Roses. At the time, Seymour was not just one of the most photographed women in the world. She was also in a high-profile relationship with GNR frontman Axl Rose. Their volatile romance found its most enduring expression not in tabloid headlines, but in music videos that played like cinematic fever dreams. In 1991, Seymour starred in the video for Don't Cry, followed a year later by the 9-minute epic November Rain. She didn't just appear, she became central to the visual narrative, portraying Rose's bride in a lavish wedding that spirals into tragedy, complete with storm-soaked funeral scenes and Slash's now iconic churchyard guitar solo. Those videos were like rock operas, recalled former MTV VJ Martha Quinn. And Stephanie wasn't just a love interest, she was the emotional heart of the story. Directed with big screen ambition and backed by multi-million-dollar budgets, the videos reflected the era's appetite for spectacle, but Seymour's performance brought emotional gravity. Her elegance contrasted sharply with the band's grunge-soaked grit, creating a surreal fusion of couture and chaos. Stephanie brought this high-fashion mystique into our world of leather, whiskey, and distortion. Bassist Duff McKagan later wrote in his memoir, "It was like watching a supernova drift through a bar fight." The relationship behind the scenes eventually imploded, with lawsuits, accusations, and a very public breakup. But the visuals they created together, decadent, dramatic, and unforgettable, remain etched into pop culture. For many, those 2 videos were their introduction to Seymour. She wasn't just modeling gowns or selling products. She was playing roles, expressing vulnerability, and embodying a kind of doomed glamour that felt uniquely of that moment. When she walked down the aisle in November Rain, it wasn't just a music video. It was mythology, set to a power ballad. Not every crossover between fashion and music happened in front of someone else's camera. For some supermodels, the pull of music wasn't just about appearances, it was about finding their own voice. Literally. In 1994, Naomi Campbell made the leap few saw coming. She released an album titled Baby Woman. The album was produced by youth from Killing Joke and saw a modest reception in Europe, with some commercial success in Japan. But in the US and UK, the critical response was brutal. Reviewers mocked the effort, questioning whether a supermodel had any business stepping behind the microphone. "People laughed when I said I wanted to make music," Campbell later admitted. "But I've never been afraid of failure. I'd rather try and fall short than stay in my lane forever." While Baby Woman didn't make her a pop star, it did signal something larger. Models were no longer confined to walking in someone else's vision. They were ready to take creative control. Carla Bruni took that idea further and succeeded. After years as a top model in the 1990s, Bruni quietly stepped away from the runway and re-emerged in the early 2000s as a singer-songwriter. Her debut album, Quelqu'un m'a dit, 2002, sold over 2 million copies. Sung in French and steeped in minimalist acoustic charm, it proved Bruni had something rare: genuine musical talent and lyrical depth. "Modeling gave me visibility, but music gave me a voice," she said. "On the runway, I interpreted someone else's ideas. With music, I could finally express my own." Bruni's success wasn't a novelty, it was a reinvention. She became a respected artist in her own right, even later serving as France's First Lady during her marriage to President Nicolas Sarkozy. These journeys, one rocky, one triumphant, showed that supermodels could be more than just faces or muses. They could be creators, taking the spotlight not just for how they looked, but for what they had to say. By 2015, the model-musician relationship had evolved. No longer silent muses in sultry slow motion, supermodels had become brands unto themselves. Public figures with their own followings, voices, and platforms. And no one understood how to harness that better than Taylor Swift.
'Cause baby, now we got bad blood. You know it used to be mad love.
When Swift released the video for Bad Blood, she didn't just invite a few friends to cameo, she assembled an entire battalion. Karlie Kloss, Gigi Hadid, Lily Aldridge, Martha Hunt, and other top models appeared not as background beauties, but as fierce warriors in a hyper-stylized action film narrative. Set in a sleek, futuristic world reminiscent of Sin City or Kill Bill, the models were cast as combat-trained alter egos with names like Slay Z, Cutthroat, and Knockout. It was pure spectacle, but it was also a powerful redefinition of what a model could be on screen. "They weren't just there to look pretty," said cultural critic Gia Tolentino. "They were portrayed as fighters, leaders, women with agency." The video flipped the traditional gaze. It was no longer about being looked at, but about doing the looking. Swift, who was at the height of her own reinvention, from country ingenue to pop powerhouse, used the video as a showcase of female solidarity and modern branding. These weren't anonymous runway stars. They were influencers, each bringing millions of followers and their own media gravity. And the numbers proved it worked. Bad Blood won the Grammy for Best Music Video and has racked up over 1.2 billion views on YouTube. More than just a promotional tool, it became a visual manifesto, one that blended high fashion with blockbuster aesthetics and Gen Z digital fluency. The legacy of Bad Blood isn't just its style or star power. It signaled a turning point where models weren't simply curated by musicians, they were collaborators, wielding their own influence and redefining beauty as power, presence, and personality. From Linda Evangelista smashing George Michael's leather jacket to Helena Christensen tangled in surf with Chris Isaak, from Stephanie Seymour's operatic romance with Axl Rose to Taylor Swift's army of model warriors, these weren't just striking visuals. They were pop culture landmarks. Each collaboration between supermodels and musicians created a fusion of glamour, narrative, and performance. They transcended both industries. They didn't just sell albums or perfume, they sold stories. What made these moments so powerful, said cultural historian Simon Reynolds, was the collision of two types of charisma: the model's visual magnetism and the musician's emotional gravity. Together, they created something larger than either could alone. For models, these videos offered a rare chance to show personality, to act, to emote, to be seen not just as mannequins, but as muses with agency. For musicians, the presence of a supermodel offered instant elegance, global appeal, and, often, a surreal twist of fantasy. These were more than promotional pairings. They were creative alliances. George Michael didn't just cast supermodels, he gave them the spotlight. Chris Isaak and Helena Christensen didn't just perform, they bared real emotion. Taylor Swift didn't hire influencers. She weaponized them into a visual army. And before all of them, Tawny Kitaen danced barefoot across the hoods of two Jaguars in Whitesnake's Here I Go Again. forever imprinting her image on MTV history. She wasn't a runway model, but her charisma, confidence, and undeniable screen presence helped set the standard for what a music video muse could be. These collaborations elevated both mediums. Music videos became mini-movies, models became multidimensional, and pop culture gained a whole new visual vocabulary, one that shaped advertising, cinema, photography, and even social media. As former MTV executive Abby Konowich put it, these videos didn't just sell songs, they taught a generation how to see. Today, their legacy lives on, not just in views or likes, but in the way we experience beauty, fame, and performance. When image meets sound at the highest level, it doesn't just entertain, it endures.